What's up? It's time to rank every main victim in Scream, analyzing each character's skills, decisions, and mentality to determine how well they performed here, but more importantly, how they do in other horror movies. This time, a killer called Ghostface wreaks havoc on a small town, forcing its citizens to either adapt or die at the hands of a knife-wielding psychopath dressed like a funeral table. We start the film with something totally unrealistic in the modern world as high schooler Casey Becker actually answers an unknown caller, only to quickly end the conversation after realizing he has the wrong number. But right after she hangs up, he immediately calls her back. Damn, dude must be desperate. Unwilling to help with his desperation, Casey hangs up again, but just when she thinks she's lost him, he foils her plans to watch Corn Pop with yet another phone call. This time though, he manages to keep her on the line with some personal questions.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Until he lets the friendly act slip by telling her why he wants to know so much about her.
I want to know who I'm looking at.
Understandably disturbed, Casey finally shows some caution and hangs up on this creep, only for his desperate ass to immediately call her back. But when Casey displays a bit more assertiveness, the caller completely drops the act and threatens her with a line a chef would say after finally getting into contact with the tuna fish it plans to gut.
If you hang up on me again, I'll gut you like a fish.
With the situation having turned sinister, Casey reaches the level of caution required to run through her house and lock the doors. But just before she can take it a step further by calling the police, the caller antagonizes her some more. So Casey tries her special move, Intimidate, saying her football player boyfriend Steve will be there soon to kick his ass, only for the caller to again outplay her by revealing he's already tied Steve to a chair in the backyard. He then decides to imitate Jigsaw by telling her to play a game, one that requires her to correctly answer trivia questions about horror movies. However, despite claiming to have seen the original Friday the 13th many times, she incorrectly answers Jason as the killer instead of the real answer, his mother, causing the caller to kill Steve and then throw a chair through the window. Now forced to demonstrate her stealth, Casey retreats to a nearby doorway, making sure to use her caution skill points to grab a knife as Ghostface enters the house from another entrance. After leaving through one of the doors though, she exposes her unimpressive composure as she fails to execute the QuickTime event and closes the door too loudly. Fortunately for Casey, however, Ghostface doesn't hear anything, failing to notice her even as she watches him moving through the house. Building on her luck even further, Casey spots her parents returning home and shows some solid awareness by crawling below the window to reach them, only to completely reverse her progress by standing back up and revealing her position to Ghostface, who then grabs her hand, but does so in a way that allows Casey to reveal some surprising melee. Unfortunately though, despite buying herself some time, she completely squanders it as she fails to reach the 30th percentile urgency required to ignore her boyfriend's corpse in the yard and keep running until she reaches her parents. So instead, she stares at him for a moment and then relaxes in the yard before getting to a point where her parents can see her, allowing Ghostface to catch up and stab her in the gut. She does, however, demonstrate some resolve, knocking back Ghostface as he chokes her. But instead of capitalizing on this opportunity, she then fails to reach the 75% ingenuity required to find a clever way to alert her parents of her presence while being too injured to speak, causing them to walk into the house without noticing her and giving Ghostface time to finally kill her. Damn. Let's talk about Casey. Despite playing the role of a normal teenager, Casey performed much better than I anticipated, though she still of course had many of the same failings you'd expect from anyone whose boyfriend still wears a Letterman jacket. You see, her initial interactions with Ghostface didn't trigger any notable red flags, with Casey displaying standard levels of caution once she realized the danger of her situation. However, her resolve in melee stood out the most, allowing her to fight back Ghostface and push through her injuries just a bit longer than expected, even though these attributes didn't ultimately save her life. Unfortunately though, her lack of urgency towards the end sealed her fate, preventing her from capitalizing on the small lead she had managed to create. Overall, Casey had a fine performance, but failed to showcase anything truly exceptional, giving her a generally positive evaluation, but one without any high-level outcomes, leaving the garrulous girlfriend whom Ghostface gutted in B tier. With the prelude complete, we finally meet the franchise's main character, Sidney Prescott. As she clacks away at her computer like Courage the Cowardly Dog trying to find a solution to an eldritch horror, she hears some strange noises just outside her window, and when she goes to investigate, her boyfriend Billy Loomis suddenly appears, exposing Sydney's skittishness as she screams loudly enough to alert her father in another room. But when he goes to check on her, he fails to notice Billy hiding behind her bed. Her father then informs her that he'll be out of town the next few days and to call him if she needs anything while he's gone. I'm sure that's not going to be important. The next day, Sydney goes to school, but sees several reporters all around the entrance. Confused as to why, her friend Tatum pops up and tells her what happened to Casey Becker and her boyfriend. After getting to class, Sydney's teacher tells her to go to the office for some questions about the murders, and the girl sitting in front of Sydney looks at her extra hard for some reason. We get it. She's the main character. Relax. At the office, we meet Principal Hembry, Sheriff Burke, and Dewey.
That's Deputy Riley.
Okay. The principal, though, caresses Sydney's chin like a barber who's getting a little too comfortable with you, and even the sheriff thinks it's weird. After school, Sydney goes back home, but displays pretty good caution by calling Tatum to see if she can stay with her until her dad returns, opting for safety in numbers instead of staying alone in her big-ass house following the news of the deadly home invasion. However, before Tatum picks her up, Sydney's phone rings, and after answering it, she hears the same squeaky-ass voice Casey did, with Ghostface obsessing over horror movies even more than a channel that ranks their victims as he once again asks for someone's favorite horror movie. Sydney, though, doesn't rank or even watch that shit, so Ghostface abandons the foreplay and takes a more sinister approach, telling her he's right outside her house. Forced to verify his claim, Sydney walks outside, but sees nobody there, so she tries to hang up on him, only for Ghostface to again reveal his desperation with a deadly threat, one that also provides some background on Sydney's family history.
If you hang up on me, you'll die just like your mother.
Now shaken up a bit, Sydney goes back into the house, where she reveals her impressive reflexes as she successfully completes her first QuickTime event. Unfortunately though, she still needs to escape, but luckily demonstrates the level of melee required to knock Ghostface to the ground, and then conjures enough resolve to continue fighting even after he pounds her head into the floor. Still moving up the scale, she completes another QuickTime event, and then displays enough speed to escape into her bedroom before Ghostface can catch her. As Ghostface fails to break through the barricade on her door, Sydney continues the courage analogy and uses her computer to contact the police. Ghostface then leaves, but conveniently, Billy suddenly appears through the window again. But right as Sydney goes to him for safety, she feels something hit her foot and looks down to find a cellular phone, a device so inexplicable that Sydney can no longer trust Billy. So she runs all the way back to the front door, where she stumbles into Dewey, who joins the other officers arriving at the scene and arrests Billy. And when they go to the police station, Billy begs Sydney to tell them he didn't do it.
Sydney, come on, you know me. Come on. Sydney, look at me.
Sydney, though, makes her choice, displaying some ruthlessness as she stays quiet and allows the officers to keep him in custody. Sheriff Burke then questions Billy about his activities, clearly insinuating that he may have killed Casey, but Billy shows off his argumentation ability with a line anyone would say to a sheriff to let them know they didn't kill anybody.
Sheriff, I didn't kill anybody.
Despite this strong defense, however, Sheriff Burke decides to keep him until they determine what phone called Sydney's house. A bit later, as Dewey tries to sneak Sydney out the back to avoid the crowd of reporters looking to get their fix, the final boss, Gale Weathers, foils their plans and finds them anyway. But before she can ask about what happened, Sydney criticizes Gale for publishing a book that not only paints her recently killed mother in a bad light, but also supports the man Sydney identified as her killer. And when Gale tries to sneak in a bit of condescension, Sydney reveals her vindictiveness with a hard right to Gale's cranium. Damn, look at her face. She really meant that. The next day at school, Sydney runs into Billy, who was released after the cops determined that his cellular device didn't make that phone call. However, instead of saying anything supportive, like, I don't know, checking in on your girlfriend who almost got murdered last night, Billy tells her she needs to get over her mother's murder from a year ago so they can finally smash. A level of emotional awareness so bad that even Billy can describe it with a single word.
Stupid.
Needing to get away from her emotionally stunted boyfriend, Sydney goes to the lavatory, but develops some spider sense as she just feels something off, inspecting the area to soothe her uneasiness. And what do you know, she sees a pair of feet descend from the toilet. As Sydney tries to escape, Ghostface exits the stall, but Sydney illustrates the challenges of tagging Spider-Man as she completes yet another QuickTime event and runs out of the bathroom. With the situation now too dangerous, the school shuts down, so Tatum's boyfriend, student Stu Mocker, decides to throw a party at his house. Surely nothing can go wrong there. Meanwhile, Principal Hembry falls victim to a game of Ding Dong Ditch at his office and starts searching the now vacant school for the culprit, deciding to dismiss Freddy Krueger as a potential suspect.
Not your friend.
When he gets back to his office though, Ghostface pops out and Principal Hembry fails to reach 95th percentile reflexes, causing him to lose the QuickTime event and die. Hey, they caught him off guard. At the party, Gale tries to do some spying, but Dewey suddenly pops up and the pair decide to hang out with a bunch of teenagers, giving Gale an opportunity to sneak a camera into the house so she can record what happens inside. Meanwhile, Tatum goes into the garage to bring some more beers to a bunch of underage partygoers as if a cop didn't literally just enter the house. However, as she siphons the fridge, the door leading back into the house closes and locks her out, so she tries to open the garage and leave that way. But right when she gets there, it stops, only for Tatum to turn around and see Ghostface standing by the switch. Failing to reach the 50th percentile caution that would enable her to treat him like the real Ghostface, you know, the guy who's repeatedly tried to kill one of the people currently in this house, Tatum casually walks up to him, but he blocks her from leaving, so Tatum playfully begs for her life with the line every Scream victim should try at least once.
No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
Now done messing around, Ghostface pulls out a knife and slices Tatum's arm, so Tatum finally takes him seriously, using her resourcefulness points to turn the fridge into a weapon. She then makes more use of her environment by throwing some bottles at him before becoming the next person to expose Ghostface's accuracy as she dodges his attack. She then contemplates her options. But when she tries to escape through the doggy door, she somehow gets stuck. So Ghostface takes advantage and opens the garage with her still inside, breaking her neck and sending the flamboyant friend who fights with fridges to B-tier. Unaware of what just happened in the garage, Sydney calls for Tatum so they can leave the party, but Billy conveniently pops up and looks at Stu like they've got an inside joke. Sydney though, feeling bad that she didn't help Billy when the police took him in, decides to bring him upstairs alone so they can talk. Oh, brother. There, Billy consoles Sydney by referencing the Silence of the Lambs, but despite his attempts to repair their relationship, Sydney decides to straight up lie to him.
This isn't a movie.
It isn't? Really? But Billy retorts by doing an impression of Donald Trump advertising his favorite movie.
It's all a movie. It's all one great big movie.
Turned on by the presidency, Sydney moves in closer and the two of them finish talking. Meanwhile, Dewey offers to take Gale on a walk to search for a suspicious car in the woods that someone called the police about. But right as they approach it, a group of teenagers leaving the party drive straight towards them, ignoring Dewey's orders to slow down. But luckily, Dewey finally realizes that they won't listen and decides to get out of their way, grabbing Gale before he conveniently falls on top of her and then takes the opportunity to caress her hair. Turned on by the police-idency, Gale kisses Dewey, who, despite his obvious feelings for her, displays restraint on his horniness and decides not to go any further while on duty. Well, he was on top anyway, so. Coincidentally, they turn to the side and find the hidden car, realizing that it belongs to Sydney's father, so Dewey begins running back to the house to find him. Meanwhile, despite having finished with him, Sydney still seems a little suspicious of Billy, who appears quite fed up with her apparent disloyalty at this point and talks to her like John Kramer when you rightfully call him a murderer.
What do I have to do to prove to you that I'm not a killer?
I don't know, not kill people? Before Sydney can respond though, Ghostface appears behind Billy and stabs him repeatedly. Well, With no time to mourn, Sydney outmaneuvers Ghostface and then uses her composure points to lock him in the room, only for him to escape a different way, forcing Sydney to now use her resourcefulness to buy the door bash attack and use it against Ghostface, giving her enough time to run outside. Finally returning, Dewey tells Gale to hide in her van as he goes into the house, where he moves from one room to the next, looking about as composed as a nudist in a snowstorm. Meanwhile, Gale tries to call for help with her own mid-90s cellular phone that probably requires you to sign a waiver before you use it. Like, you really want to put that thing next to your ear? That's the damn elephant's foot right there. Damn biohazard. As she risks getting cancer, Sydney's friend Randy pops up at the window and Gale displays both her reflexes and self-preservation by immediately hitting him without hesitation. When she tries to drive away, however, Sydney shows horrible caution by jumping in front of a moving vehicle, which causes Gale to swerve and crash into a nearby tree. Like, I get she was trying to get her to stop, but she almost got run over. After having just caused a car accident, Sydney looks for another target, so when she spots Dewey, her chaos powers again activate as he immediately falls to the ground and reveals a knife in his back, leaving the dutiful deputy desperate for a damsel in B tier. With Dewey now taken care of, Ghostface appears and chases after Sydney, who quickly runs into Dewey's car and locks the door, but unfortunately lacks the 25th percentile awareness required to notice the trunk opening behind her. Luckily for Sydney though, she does have enough melee to knock Ghostface away, and then takes advantage by running to Dewey's lifeless body and using her 80th percentile resourcefulness points to buy his gun. Suddenly, however, Randy and Stu appear and approach Sydney, each of them claiming the other to be Ghostface, but Sydney shows caution and mild ruthlessness by locking them both out, potentially sacrificing one to the other. As she waits inside, Billy limps out of a room upstairs, somehow still alive after getting gutted like a fish, only to then tumble all the way down the staircase. Concerned for his well-being, Sydney goes to check on him, but he starts moving surprisingly well for a man who went through as much trauma as a pumpkin on Halloween, displaying his leadership by asking for Sydney's gun so he can take control of the situation. After Sydney relinquishes control, Billy opens the door, but only Randy runs inside, still accusing Stu of being Ghostface. Billy though finally decides to stop messing around and shoots Randy, who jumps back like he just got shot. Man, acting like you just got hit with a shotgun. Flopping. As Billy treats the fake blood on his finger like Cheeto dust, Sydney tries to run away, only to crash into Stu, but when she begs him for help, he pulls out a voice modifier that sounds exactly like Ghostface, revealing him and Billy as the Ghostface killers. Billy then tells Sydney that they killed her mother and framed someone else for it, with Billy blaming Sydney's mother for his family breaking apart after his father slept with her. Why don't you blame your father? Feeling the need to reveal the entire plan before executing it, Stu leaves the gun on the counter and then goes into another room, only to return with Sydney's father, explaining that they'll frame him for all of the murders. Instead of taking Sydney outright here though, Billy and Stu decide to first stab each other to make themselves seem like victims.
Fuck! God damn it, Stu!
Wouldn't it be better to do that after killing everyone else? Now you're gonna be moving way worse. Anyway, Stu then goes to grab the gun again, only to find Gale holding it instead. Gale though doesn't have the required knowledge of guns to turn the safety off before using it as a threat, so Billy just takes the gun from her and kicks her outside, right onto Dewey. Hey, they switched positions. Sydney, meanwhile, begins a massive ascent up the tier list with one of the most impressive sequences in all of Survivor Scale. You're gonna want to pay attention. She starts off by showing some opportunism, sneaking away from the kitchen and then calling the cops while the two killers focus on Gale. Eventually though, they realize Sydney is gone, so Billy goes to look for her while equipped with the gun, forcing Sydney to fight at an even greater disadvantage. Sydney, however, counters him with her special stealth move, Umbrella Dash, that forces Billy into a failed QuickTime event, causing him to drop the gun, which for some reason, Sydney just throws aside as if she, or the other killer, couldn't use it. Like, you know Stu is still in the house, right? He could just take the gun and use it against you. Well, nobody's perfect. Except Arkin. Luckily for her though, Stu stands for stupid, so instead of grabbing the gun he was just looking for, he chooses a different option and tackles Sydney, who somehow manages to fend off a guy a foot taller than her before using her resourcefulness points to buy a big booty television and kill Stu. Now that's impressive. Just when she thinks she's won though, Randy pops up, only to get punched by Billy, who then starts choking Sydney. But just before he can kill her, Gale uses her awareness and ruthlessness points to access the gun on the floor and shoot Billy. Hooray! At least somebody thought to use the gun. Sydney and Gale then gaze upon their accomplishments, with Randy tagging along too. Well, at least he knows what's about to happen.
This is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare.
At least she shot him that time. With the cops now arriving, we see Dewey somehow still alive after getting the Caesar special, and Gale reaches 99th percentile dedication by immediately going to work even after all she's been through in the past few hours. If I had that work ethic, these videos would come out a lot more often. Time to rank. First off, we have Gale, the investigative reporter who maybe did a little too much digging, eventually finding herself the target of a pair of psychopaths. Despite relatively few opportunities to showcase her skill set though, Gale still manages to show some pretty valuable attributes, most notably her ruthlessness and self-preservation, taking deadly action against those who might threaten her, like when she whacks Randy or shoots Billy. Moments like these suggest strong proficiency in films with human threats that require deadly force to defeat. Gale also demonstrates some deductive ability, uncovering much of the truth about Sydney's mother before even the person who supposedly witnessed it was able to. However, Gale doesn't display much beyond this, which limits how high she can ultimately rank based on this film alone, but still establishes a solid foundation for future performances, sending the restless reporter who rolls up in red to B2. Finally, we have Sydney, one of horror's most celebrated final girls, and she did not disappoint, clearly having one of the most impressive performances I've covered so far, providing a strong example of what an ultimate survivor looks like in a slasher. Spoiler. Sydney displays almost entirely positive traits in this film, often reinforcing them by exhibiting them multiple times, with the clearest example being her reflexes, which she uses to evade Ghostface repeatedly. Though a couple other people did too, so maybe Ghostface just sucks. Sydney also demonstrates valuable resourcefulness, a trait that pairs well with her ruthlessness, allowing her to kill her enemies with unconventional materials in her environment, like when she kills Stu with a television. She also displays some notable resolve, stealth, and melee, each of which gave her access to special abilities that helped her escape her encounters with Ghostface. Despite all the positives I said though, Sydney did just leave the gun fully exposed when she disarmed Billy, a mistake that certainly could have led to her downfall if not for Stu's incompetence. Fortunately though, this concern doesn't matter much in comparison to all of her strengths, so Sydney still grades out very well, likely having strong performances across a wide variety of other horror subgenres. But I'd say she's already in her best situation, leaving the victimized virgin turned villain vanquisher in S tier. But that's it. The average rank of this cast was B tier. A very strong collection of characters, with the ultimate survivor going to Sydney for her great versatility, but especially her reflexes, resourcefulness, and ruthlessness. And the first kill going to, I guess, Dewey, for just being worse than the other main victims. He wasn't bad though. He was just the worst of a strong cast. Sometimes it just goes that way. Thanks for watching.